fresh off a rest day. Feeling froggy. Feeling froggy for this back day. Frankly, Spotify Weekly is actually giving me a couple of good songs to listen to. Those have kind of been going hard. So in terms of, I'm not even thinking about what movements that I'm going to do for this back day. I'm just thinking about going crazy, right? In a good way, of course. And frankly, I think that's a better approach, right? There's the chicken and the egg. Well, I guess that's not as good of a reference. But in terms of lifting, on a day-by-day, it's a very simple endeavor. It's simple, it's repetitive, there's not a lot of evolution over time. The sports science of building a pair of biceps is pretty similar right now to 20 years ago, right? Do some fucking curls. Don't swing them too hard, feel the burn, time under tension, but go hard. Right, that's the gist of it. So, where's the factor to separate you from everybody else? What's the actual difference between the guys who continually get after it versus the ones who end up staying exactly where they're at? And it's a ton of freaking variables, right? I'm talking actual out of the gym recovery, sleep, hydration, diet tracking, and everything else. Not to mention extracurricular supplementation, but that's its own thing. But in general, I'd say the food, sleep, recovery, and intensity of the training are your big four. Those are the things you should be concerned with. So let's assume you're sleeping good, 8 hours, 7 hours a night. You're drinking, maybe close to a gallon a day-ish. If you're ever under, that's not like a really bad thing or anything, but you're going to want to make sure you've got enough fluids floating around your system. And let's say you're actually hitting your macros. Like you're eating in a minor surplus, protein goals solid, you're not eating a ton of junk. You can have some treats every now and again, but for the most part, solid foods, pastas, potatoes, just whatever else. Actual good protein sources, meats, fish, eggs, dairy. Don't leverage too much on the protein powder. It might start to mess with your gut. But all of that is in order, right? Let's say that you got all of that under control. What can you do in your training to up your game, to continually improve the benefits that you'll continue to get over time, and frankly, just become a more experienced lifter? You don't really gain experience, quote unquote, if every lift is exactly the same thing. You might gain days, but if I came to the gym and my effort level was exactly just meh, I wouldn't. You don't learn anything, right? You don't evolve, or you don't. Nothing really improves if your baseline effort is because the whole point of this sort of adaptation with the gym is that you push it so hard into the realm of uncomfortability, not only for you mentally, but also just your body, where you're forcing it to adapt and say, holy crap, that was nuts. I don't want that to happen again. So let's build up some kind of defense mechanisms, actually rebuild bigger and stronger, so that you don't have to freaking, be that weak, right? In kind of a bro sciencey way. That's kind of cool. But what can you do to make that happen, right? And frankly, I'm not gonna say do this style of set, or do this many working sets, or do this many sets of movements, or hey, if you do this drop set, that's the magic freaking workout. Suddenly your lats are going to grow twice as wide, twice as quick. No, man. Those are the minor details. So frankly, I think, probably 70% of the value of a workout, at least in my mind, is going to come from just internal hype / effort, right? I don't have to be that hyped up to get pretty good effort, but the more hyped I can get pre-set, the better, So it's such that I'm going to give a lot of credit to just how hard somebody takes a set, and you can tell. If you lift for long enough, and especially if you lift around the same guys, you kind of get a gist of their strength and how many reps they can do with certain weights. So if they're slacking, you can tell, right? So I'm not. This isn't for the casual exercise-based lifter, right? Because obviously just coming to the gym, getting after it, getting exposed to some weights just maintaining your build, if that's all you're aiming for, then you did it. That's freaking badass, right? But for somebody who's got that muscle building nut, or that muscle building like screw loose in their head, I'd say 70% just overall like, okay, sure, my lats are burning now, or it's getting hard to breathe, or whatever else, and then continuing to push it. That is what's going to give you, I mean, the biggest chunk of a good workout. So as I'm going in today for this back day, I'm not thinking movements, right? I mean, I'm imagining myself doing a couple of movements, but I'm more concerned with that 10 seconds before. I've got a song blaring, to the point where my phone's giving me that warning that it's too loud. Get a couple. There's no conscious thoughts. It's just grab whatever I'm aiming for, make the set happen, right? So the actual style of set, that's second. That's almost my second priority, which I still care about, right? Like I want most of my lifts to be varied. So I want them to have heavy ass straight sets, 10 rep, 12 rep failure. And I also want lighter, squeezing, more, I guess you could kind of say like torturous, burning reps that might even go to like 22-ish reps in just one set, where I'm really squeezing and kind of making sure that the kind of, what's the word I'm thinking of? Maybe effective fatigue of every rep is a bit higher, right? Because if I just want to do a 10 rep set of curls, I'm going to pick up some heavy dumbbells and make the reps hard by just how much weight I'm lifting. But if I might want to do a 20 rep set of curls, I'm going to go lighter, and I'm going to make them more intense by having an extra long hold, an emphasized slow eccentric, and really trying to push it that way. But in either case, the effort's got to be there. Because frankly, if you're not going into it like you really want to freaking kill it, the likelihood that you might give up before you really achieve actual muscular failure, or at least as close as you can get to it, will increase, right? I mean, we've all been there. Let's say you're on the pec deck. Let's say you're on tricep pushdowns, even on bench, and somebody's spotting you maybe, so you don't have to worry about getting crushed. 10 reps, cool. Now, you've got physically the capability to do another 2, but let's say you're not really totally into it for whatever reason, and then you get one more, or you might not even get that one more. You barely, take it. And that's where I kind of look back and say, okay, did I fail that rep because I gave up? Or did I fail it because I physically just could not move anymore? And sometimes I give up. Like I can tell sometimes on sets of, usually it's the sets where they're very long, like reps that might exceed upwards of like 15, because those reps begin to get a bit torturous. It's not like a squat where, I mean, there's a pretty definitive like, all right, this is not getting up one more time, I gotta rack it, right? But with like curls or lateral raises or pec deck and things like that nature, sometimes it's, all right, it's starting to burn. It's getting hard to really move this weight any further. But if you kind of dig a little deeper in that moment, odds are you can probably finish that rep, where if you gave up in that moment, you might have just had to rack it, So before you begin to really concern yourself with this style or this movement or this rep scheme, make sure that intensity and just, I'm saying all sorts of classic, like cliche motivational phrases, but there's no better way to put it. Like, make sure your drive is there, because it's, it's like you're trying to design a freaking sports car, or, I keep thinking of that, oh shit, what's his name? I just made this reference like a week ago, and I still forget. It's like you're in that one Christian Bale movie where he's, they're designing that race car. What is going to make the bigger difference, right? Having a slightly more aerodynamic body, or having a simply more powerful engine, right? And with working out, there's a lot of aspects to it where more is not always more, right? If you're dieting, there's a limit to how much cardio is effective, and there's a limit to how much of a deficit you can be in before you're not just burning fat, you're kind of starving yourself and weakening the muscle that you've spent so long building up. Bulking, same thing. There's a limit to how much food you should be eating in bulk, at least at any given moment during that phase, where you're not eating just enough to gain substantial muscle with some body fat. You're always going to gain some body fat in a real bulk. Deal with it. But if you overdo it, you're putting on way too much fat, messing up your digestion, messing up your appetite. You overdid it, right? So a lot of times there's a sweet spot where it's not like, it's kind of tricky, because you would think, okay, if I eat another meal that'll be actually better, whereas really you might want to wait a few weeks to actually build up your appetite and your metabolism to match that necessity for the extra meal. But when it comes to the actual effort on a lift by lift basis, more will always be more. The harder you can push your sets on a set by set basis, the more intense, dense, and I say stimulative that those sets are. And I'm not saying you have to lift a freaking 1,000,000 pounds on a set of rows, but whatever weight you are using, make sure that you try to take it all the way. And that's way easier said than done. Like, I'm not trying to say this as though I'm like, yeah, why can't you guys take every set to failure? It's freaking hard, right? I mean, I swear, usually, like with some overhead tricep extensions, sometimes I totally catch myself probably stopping before I really could have done one more, just because it's starting to get extra kind of difficult. So that's kind of my internal battle, right? I'm fighting against my kind of internal desire for comfort, which is, dude, this set is freaking hard. What the hell are you doing, right? I mean, that's totally what your subconscious mind is telling yourself as you're doing a crazy ass set. But you got to take control of your own freaking mind and body and say, you fucking kidding me? That's when you, like, in my mind, I want to pick a number of, like, the goal for that many sets and say, all right, 30 reps right here. Like, I want to, just because I'm barely making 15, like, I still want to try to push it to that 30 so that I really know I get to the point that I really actually maxed out that set. And the more you do that, the easier it is to do that, the more likely you're going to be able to continue to do it. And frankly, it's going to feed off into the rest of your sort of recovery, diet, and every other kind of factor of working out positively, because when guys are like, I mean, how can I eat more meals, dude? It's more physical activity is going to make you hungrier, right? So it's not a desire, right? You're giving your body a need to eat more food by seriously wrecking yourself in the gym in a good way. The likelihood that you're going to want to go to bed a little bit earlier because you're freaking tired from that lift increases. If you've ever had a crazy leg day, especially, we're getting close to summertime here, guess how much water you're going to be drinking because you're getting freaking thirsty. It all kind of plays back into the training, because without it, I mean, you're not giving yourself any stimulus to adapt to, So as much value as there is in the improvement of training styles over time, and making sure that all your sets are effectively stimulating hypertrophy and you're following the most current training logic and everything else, who's going to throw a damn brick the furthest, or a shot put the furthest, right? The 13-year-old with perfect form, or the 20-year-old who's got a bunch of extra size on him and just throws it harder, So it's like you're polishing up a car before you've actually worked on the inside of it. Like, sure, it might look nice on the outside. You do a perfect set of dumbbell curls, but you miss the whole effort part of it, So take with that what you will. Use that as a little bit of a reference to if you ever see yourself maybe catching, and it's not something to think, oh shit, yeah, I gotta, because making kind of a, making a self-correction like that, part of it is admitting, like, crap, I have been taking it easy on myself. And that's not always the most fun thing to say, right? Because as far as we're concerned, and we're on mind, like, we're all individually perfect and blameless, That's the easiest way to go about life. It's not my fault, it's somebody else. But if you can actually say, all right, I gotta up my game. I haven't been totally killing it on the regular. Something's gotta change here. I'm gonna try to work on that. Do you not think that that is probably the greatest training growth mindset you can have? Because I'm pretty damn sure it is, you know? So that's all I gotta say chat-wise. I'm getting myself amped up from the pre-workout talk. So let's get in there, get warmed up, and start with set number 1. Oh yeah, this is gonna be a good lift. I usually skip the warm-up portion. It's not as much to see, but if it's just me in here and doesn't mind actually, I guess I don't mind talking to myself a little bit more. But in terms of back is an easy warm-up. Honestly, what you're seeing me do right here is basically it. Because it's like when I have it at this angle, I'm getting enough lats and enough like upper traps a little bit. Because I'm kind of doing a row, and I'm almost getting a little bit of lat from like a bit of a pull down action. But it's more of like a 45-degree looking angle. Because I'm not pulling here, and I'm not pulling straight down either. I'm kind of doing a little in between. But really for back, this is it. Because there's not a lot of like dangerous moving pieces. Like basically everything that's going to be loaded with whatever machine I pick for set number 1, I'm kind of getting warm right now. You know, I'm using straps, so I'm not having a ton of bicep activation. So no way am I worried about warming up my biceps before I do a set of, you know, like heavy arsenal rows or some shit. And same thing with forearms. I got the straps. I don't need to get my grip totally in order. Plus, I was just saying this a little bit ago, kind of as, I don't know if this goes for everything. Because, of course, like with hamstrings, I definitely want to warm up. But it kind of clicked to me that at least back versus chest, back doesn't need a massive warm-up because everything is in tension, you know? I don't have to warm up my rotator cuff to do a set of rows because there's not a, well, I mean, you tell me if you're like a whole, you know, kinesiology major or anything else, but I've never felt any stress on my rotator cuff in a pulling action. It's only when it's in compression, if I'm pushing something, that I'm ever, you know, feel like I'm prone to tweakage or things like that. So the fact that I can basically warm up every piece of the puzzle right here, I mean, I just don't end up doing anything else. So I'll sit here for a couple more minutes, gradually increase the weight on these until I'm, you know, moving a little bit around. And then the warm-up continues on whatever set number 1 ends up being, right? So let's say I move up and I start rowing like 150 for a couple right here. And I'm like, okay, I'm warm. You know, everything's moving, feel good. Let's start with pull downs. Pull downs, I'll still ease my way up from the bottom, right? Start with 100, 130, 160, one whatever, just a few feeler reps. And then once I feel comfortable, let's say I want to do a working set of freaking 300. Maybe not, that's kind of heavy, but let's say I wanted to do that. I've worked my way up so I'm actually exposed to it and I don't feel like I'm, you know, going to tweak anything. So it's not like I just immediately jump to a full stack and say, all right, I had the heat on in the car, I'm warm, you know. Not exactly. But back, pretty simple warm-up. So I'm going to keep doing this, get amped up, and I'll see you for set number 1, whatever it ends up being. This pull down is freaking heavy. So the reason I say that, I'm pulling from here. This looks to be about maybe 2 feet, 2.5 feet from the pivot point, whereas the weight is loaded, looks about 3 feet from the pivot point, right? So when I get to, you know, horizontal, that means that I'm feeling probably, I don't know, maybe 2.5 plates of weight worth of weight, even though only 2 is loaded, right? So this machine has, it's got efficient, not strength curve, what am I thinking? Efficient torque, right? So something like sometimes a certain hammer strength row we're all aware of, and looks like this one a little bit as well. What happens is the weight is loaded closer to the pivot point than your handle is. So you've got more advantage over it. So you can sling, I mean, I could probably sling 4 plates around over here. Whereas, honestly, two might be the limit with this one, at least for now. Like, in terms of a good set. You know, maybe I could move it around if I put 3 on, but it'd probably be too much form breakdown for it to make any sense. So this would be set number 1. Kind of a wrap around pull down. Because I'm not pulling straight down, I kind of get a little bit of a pullover action as well. Because, you know, these points are rotating. But no more discussion. Let's just make this shit happen. Come on. Oh my goodness. Oh. Holy crap. 2 more. That's perfect. Oh my goodness. 1 more. And then we'll move on. Oh, okay, that's enough of those. Whew. This machine is a perfect start for today. Nice. I'll probably drop the weight for the next set, but for this first one, let's make it extra heavy. Oh my gosh. Oh, okay. Oh. Yeah, let's drop it to 3 and do 1 more. Okay. Oh, let's move on. I'm not sure what to, though. Oh my goodness. Back to regular classic pull downs. In this first set, I want to make a little nasty. So, heavier to 60. I'll have a little swing as the set progresses, and I'm not going to hold the bottom for like a full second and slowly release it. And frankly, I'm cool with that, especially towards the end of a lift. Like if I'm going to have reps where I really hold it, I might kind of lean towards earlier in the workout to have those, because when you're already pumped and kind of fatigued and you've already built up all that damage, I kind of feel like a nasty set like this makes more sense, because you're just trying to get repeated expansion and contraction with enough tension to actually add, you know, extra pumpage, as it were. But we're getting close to the end here. Not room for too much more. Okay. Oh my goodness. Whew. All right. One more set of something. So, pre-exhaust with some seated kind of cable row looking action. And I'm doing this cable instead of this cable, because this has it's got that extra pulley, so you can't build up momentum as well. So really that just means the force feels much more constant, right? Because obviously if I grab that row and I had weight that I could really rip, if I did a super quick rep, there'd be no tension at the top because the weight is already moving upward. So it's all just kind of floating for a second. So sometimes when you do a quick, nasty set with a seated row where the cable's directly linked to the weight, you can't really go as quick, because then it turns into a totally weird strength curve of a set. Not saying it's bad, but right now, this makes a little more sense. So this will be row, upper back, trap focused. I'm trying to squeeze my shoulder blades up and together. And then when I put this down and move on to pull downs, same thing with the shoulder blade cue, but instead of having them come up and together, I want them to come down and together. And that sort of visualization usually helps me think lats instead of biceps and forearms. But if this is good, then this is it. Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah. That's all. Let's pose down. You tell me, but I'm pretty sure that was a good lift. All right. No need for the fancy lighting. Honestly, I think right here is still pretty good, even with how soft these regular overhead lights are. Oh, geez. But let's do a recap. 3 machine pull downs, 2 machine rows, 1 pull down regular, and then a pull down row superset. Yeah, 7 working sets. That's been my freaking number. And I'm not aiming for 7. Like, that's not what I'm trying to do here. But I'm trying to make sure that I do every set as hard as I can in a few different styles. Some a little bit lighter and squeezing, and some a little more, heavy and nasty. Just classic straight working set style. And in doing so, as long as they're hard enough, by the time I hit that 7 mark, for me at least, I'm as pumped as I can get, and I feel as fatigued as I need to be to actually have stimulated growth. That's all I'm in here for. Like, of course, this is freaking fun, but my goal is to kind of reach that perfect amount of volume and intensity where I've stimulated myself to induce muscle gain, but not so much I've overworked myself for no reason, right? At least in a progress-minded sense. I feel like that makes a lot of freaking logic, But either way, no more talking about it. Let's just see what this freaking, see what this pump actually looks like. Ooh. Yeah, I feel like my lats are really kind of pulling forward. That row machine, the one with the 2 individual handles where I'm going like this, and the pullover, I'm feeling so much more like front of lat right in here, kind of burning and fatigue, than I do with just regular pull downs, regular rows, and regular cable pullovers either. And I think that's something I've been missing out on, because normally when I'm doing a pull down or something, I'm feeling my lower lat, like way down here where it ties into my freaking kind of waistline almost. Like, that's where I feel a lot of it, right over my Christmas tree. But I would think that adding those 2 movements in more often for these back days is going to give me a wider kind of lat spread, because it would make sense if that area feels like it's getting more fatigue and activation, right? It would hopefully get a bit more growth. But let's see it from the back. Yeah, right about here. Oh. Ooh, my goodness. And the most muscular, a good old-fashioned Arnold for the road. Oh, man. But yeah, that was good. My energy on those first sets of rows and pull downs, freaking stellar by my standard. So now I want my next lift to feel like I'm locked in that much again, right? Because if you have a lift where you're kind of scrappy, you didn't really kill it, you weren't totally locked in, maybe you felt like you were freaking, maybe easing up a little bit, intensity-wise, just overall energy-wise, sometimes that can be an eye-opener, or somebody might say, all right, I gotta pick up my game, what the fuck? Excuse my language. But for me, the lifts that typically boost my kind of, self-leveled bar of the intensity I'm aiming for, it isn't the ones where I let myself down. And maybe I was like kind of sick, maybe I didn't get enough rest, I wasn't as hydrated, and I felt kind of off. Because it's easy to just say, I was off that day, I'll come back harder the next time, right? But usually if I underperform when I come back for the next lift, I just want to reach my normal level of like satisfaction of effort. But the lifts where I really kill it and I go after it a little extra than normal, those are the ones that I feel like mentally as a lifter I kind of improve and advance, because I basically just show myself I'm capable of being like that. And if that's something that I've now achieved, like today, honestly, out of the last couple lifts, this was a pretty freaking solid amount of like just energy. Felt rested, hydrated, fed, and everything else, so that all helped. But there is a certain like subjective level of approach to your workouts, which can't be explained by, you know, like your whoops rest score or however, like your sleep score or anything else. You know, it's beyond just regular like data biometrics, you know. So every time I come in and get a lift like that, that's where I end up thinking, okay, what have I been doing for these last 20 lifts? They could have all been this good. What was I holding myself back? This is the new bar. And it's that's something that I've done gradually over, I mean, these whole like damn near 7 years of working out. Because I've had lifts like in just the basement where sometimes, like let's say this is like an intensity over time graph. As a beginner, I'm kind of down here, moderate intensity, which is totally fine. You're a beginner, right? But eventually you get to a point where I've lifted for long enough, I know what I'm doing. If I want to keep progressing, I got to up it. So I don't remember if I had a small one like that or something, but I definitely remember being at home and having a crazy ass late chest day. And this is like before, another day of high school. So I got to wake up at 7 or 6:30. It's like 1 in the morning. Hit a sweet chest day, and I'm like, whoa. And that was a little bit of an intensity booster where I said, dude, I can go way harder than I have been. But I've also had the same thing where I've had a scrappy lift and thought kind of the opposite, where it's like, dude, what the fuck am I doing? I got to raise the bar, So it's, I think it's kind of your responsibility, at least if this is like something you really want to go down and get after for a long time and have a lot of improvements and gains, to at least be able to look back on over a certain period and say, fuck, man, I did it. It doesn't matter what that level is or what your starting level is actually starting at. But if you can really kind of up your game intensity-wise, like I was saying to the car, I swear everything else will follow. Because if you set the bar that you want to kill it every lift, then you're not going to kill it if you got 3 hours of sleep the night before. You're not going to kill it if you had 1 liter of water over the course of the entire day and now you got a late lift. You're definitely not going to kill it if you don't give yourself some time, at least in your schedule, allocated specifically, where, at least somewhere around that 5 to 7 after work, after school, that you're going to the gym, and it's not even a question. I want, it's your life, but I would want to be the guy where if anyone asked about me and they said, oh, is he going to work out today? Like the idea of just skipping just for no reason, like just because I didn't feel like it, like that should be completely out of the realm of reason, and I'm not saying that's for everybody, right? Because if you have a thing, obviously you want to really get after it. But fitness is kind of interesting because it can be somebody's like serious interest, hobby, endeavor that they're getting after like crazy. But it's also something that everyone should be involved in, at least to a certain degree, right? I mean, even if for whatever reason I woke up and said, I don't know, for what alternate universe, screw bodybuilding, man. I want to be a professional go-kart racer, or I want to be whatever. And I said, done with all this hypertrophy, whatever. I would still lift, right? Like even if lifting isn't your thing, just getting some weight exposure, it's kind of just a necessity of life. This isn't it's like you take your car to the shop to get the oil changed. You're still living in this freaking bio mech. It doesn't just stay in reasonably good performance randomly, So that's where I'm kind of torn, because half the time I'm saying some shit like, you got to get after it, even if you don't feel like it, because that should be the bar that you're bringing yourself to on the regular, and anything below that, bullshit. But also, don't negate just the benefits of a regular kind of casual, whatever kind of workout for somebody who, isn't such a freaking nutcase. So sometimes you got to take what I say with a grain of salt. Because if you're a total beast and lifting is what you want to get into, that's something you really want to get after year after year after year, decades into the making. I mean, there's guys who've been working out for freaking 50 years. I ran into a couple of those guys at the Arnold backstage. These guys have been freaking working out pre Ronnie Coleman's competitive era. So it's if that's something that you want to be able to look back on and say, you made some shit happen. Look at yourself today. Did you make anything happen? Right? And it's marginal. I gained maybe 1/10 of a pound of muscle over the course of these last 24 hours. 1/10 of a pound, maybe. That's not a lot. That's completely negligible on a day-by-day basis. But when you add it up, when you add that up to a day-by-day, to a week-by-week, month-by-month, half year, year by, then shit's really going to start to happen. So it's kind of two conflicting ideas, right? Like, at least to an extent, try to lift like every lift is your last lift ever, but also be comfortable with the fact that you're going to have, essentially a, not endless, but an unfathomable amount of lifts into the future that you don't even know exactly what they're going to bring, and still be kind of comfortable with the fact that it's just this kind of long game. So if I just answered a question in the Q&A I did earlier, where it was like, what's the appeal? And I can't condense it to just a short answer like that, because I'm motivated by the idea of where I'm going to be in the future, right? Like, imagining myself with 5 years of lifting experience and muscle density and, maturity and everything else, not to mention just the knowledge and experience gain that I'll get from that time training, plus all the crazy freaking people I'll get to meet throughout this entire freaking endeavor. But also, it's like, just day by day, there's nothing else I really want to do. This is the highlight, at least in terms of my own, personal routine. So I wouldn't want to freaking change that for anything. Because I get to go to bed tonight. Oh, dude, my back is, oh man, nice. And I get to wake up tomorrow, all right, arms, bad freaking ass, right? So it's, it might not be a bad description to say my whole life revolves around this, maybe in more of an ellipse, because obviously if you took away the gym, it'd still be Sam, I'd still be a guy, but this is definitely a big part. And it's not because of, any sort of achievement I've now made from doing it. It's just the fact that I like to do it, man, Peacock wants to fly, goddammit. But that's all I got there. I'm just a happy freaking camper. Let's go home. I gotta eat something. There we go. Yeah. So, on a bit more of a kind of personal level, do I ever feel like I'm going through the motions? Right? I get a lot of comments that are asking that. It's like, how do I get out of the funk? I feel like I'm not, you don't have that actual excitement to get in there. And I get that sometimes, like nothing, never to the point that's so disheartening that I've ever thought like, oh, I don't know if I'm cut out for this whole lifting thing. I just, that's always been set in stone. May as well have that freaking tattooed at the front of my mind, like, right before a name, or well, I guess if I had name and occupation, it'd just be Sam Sulik, the lifter. That's my personal identity if you were to read it. But yeah, it just happens, right? But what I would argue there is it's not caused arbitrarily. If you ever feel like the lift is actually kind of a chore, you're not super just excited and amped up to jump in the car and speed over to the gym, and try not to get a ticket while you're doing so, I would ask you this, right? Is your preparation ideal? Like, your whole day is just you're gonna be operating sub max capacity if you got jack for sleep. if your diet is just off and weird, and by weird, I mean like sporadic, long breaks between meals. The meals that you do eat are just kind of real, like, funky. I mean, the American diet, I do not think is following regular FDA recommendations of that 2,000 calories per day by any means, right? And of course, as anybody who eats to leverage like body composition changes, you're going to eat weird stuff, and people are going to look at you funny if you have a bowl of chicken and rice for, lunch at work or whatever at school. But that's not what I mean. I mean like only processed carbs, no proteins, and not enough fluids. That'll mess you up. That's not conducive with a badass lift. Plus, I mean, speaking of hydration, like 2 Monsters in the morning, a Gatorade, and then a Coke Zero, that's not going to cut it, man. You need your freaking gallon jug. That might be overkill, but it's better to do more hydration than less, So, but if all of that's not in order, then it's like you got a table with uneven legs. It's going to be all wobbly. You're not going to be able to really push it because your prep sucked. Like, let's just be honest. So the lifts where I didn't get awesome sleep was dehydrated, maybe from like traveling or like some kind of whatever shit I had to do that day. If my prep was off, then my performance is going to suffer. And the whole day by day lifts, that's the real kind of performance that you're showing up to. That's the competition that you're getting after in terms of, making gains and fighting against your body's desire to just maintain homeostasis. Like, apart from just puberty and like reaching, full adult height and size, your body doesn't want to grow. It wants to stay where it's at. So you've got to really put yourself in a situation to induce that growth. And the training is a big part of it. So if you're training scrappy because your recovery and your prep and your diet and your hydration is off too, not only gains-wise is it going to suffer, but just kind of like your mental approach and your enjoyment of the gym as a whole isn't going to be as good. So that's where I put a lot of emphasis on. This is like my four tenets of training, right? It's sleep, hydration, calories, right? Making sure those three are in order. Because if I slept good and I'm hydrated and I've got a good amount of food in my system, dieting or bulking, the likelihood that I'm going to walk into the gym warm, well, not warm, but like comfortable, excited, in a good headspace, it's up there. It's not 100, something in the day might have thrown me off, you never know, but it's above 90%. And that's what I want, because if all my prep is right, then you can kill it in the gym, right? I mean, it's like the, I forget the quote, but the gist is like if you, it's not if you stress during practice, but, oh man, I forget, because it's not a long quote, it's just a couple of words, but the gist is, if you, oh man, I forget it's like if you, I can't remember it, but it's, if you actually did everything you had to do to prepare in practice, then when it comes to an actual game or competition, then that's going to come easy to you. So that's kind of how the lifting works in my mind, right? My practice, in a sense, is everything outside of the gym. Sleep, hydration, walking around with a jug all the time, actually getting my meals in, having rice packets or just regular like minute rice ready to go whenever I'm ready for it. And then when it comes to walking in the gym, seamless, So that's what makes it more fun for me. Because if every lift feels like a chore, you're not going to want to do it. And you're not going to have any fun doing it either, So I'm more concerned with my subjective enjoyment of all these lifts added up. And the cool part about it is if I'm really concerned with making sure I'm like excited and going hard and just enjoy every lift, then the question of am I going to progress, it's not even a question. That's simply a result, So it's like, well, you get the freaking gist. If you put a mole in your backyard, its goal isn't to destroy your flower beds. Its goal is just to dig, because it loves digging. And then the results that it actually makes is just the nature of that, that kind of effort. Now, of course, that's kind of a bad result, but you get what I'm saying. So that's enough lift talk. Plus, yeah, but I'm not joking. I was getting myself amped up on that sort of pre-gym sort of drive. But yeah, now I can go home and chill. I watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood yesterday. That was a freaking good movie. I can't believe I've never seen that before. And I haven't, I'm lucky enough I didn't see any random like spoilers or clips of it on, on like Instagram or whatever. So, yeah, the end was a total freaking surprise. Yeah, that was great. So, what else did I watch relatively recently? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I just watched something else. Shawshank Redemption. Oh, yeah, shit. And Prisoners. Yeah, I just watched Prisoners a little bit ago, too. I'm trying to widen my cinema, not itinerary, but, well, really I'm just trying to not play on my phone so much. And if I do, I'd rather watch like a good movie or something, instead of just 30 reels of, like, just random BS, right? But yeah, those were pretty good. So, if you've got any other solid recommendations, I'd love to hear it, because yeah, that's the perfect thing to do during cardio, right? If you're really getting into something like that, show, movie, whatever, even just random YouTube video, the 30 minutes of cardio goes by like nothing. And I know I say this all the time, but it's probably my best argument for doing the cardio. You're playing on your phone for hours anyway. And I'm not saying you specifically as though I'm like some golden child. Dude, I'm on my phone way too much. I would not want to release my screen time. But if you're just sitting, scrolling, doing anything else, adding pedaling on the bike for 30 minutes in the morning, or the treadmill if that's your thing, or the Stairmaster, whichever one kind of floats your boat, it's not that much more difficult. It might take a little bit to get it into your routine, but dude, sometimes I've done extra cardio because I didn't really want to get up and stop watching whatever I was watching, right? So the 30 minutes comes a little easier to me now, because it wasn't too long ago that I had like it was like a 2-month stint where I was doing 2 hours of cardio a day. That was a little much. That was I think I could have got away with just the 1 hour, but had to up my game for the actual real prep. But yeah, it's only 30 minutes. What is that in terms of a percentage of the day? 2%, I think. 24 hours, half an hour, 1 out of 48. What's 1 out of 48? That's 2 out of 96. So, yeah, 2.5%, 2.3-ish% of your whole day. It's not a ton, It's just a little addition, which I promise has some pretty damn innumerable benefits. It's not like you're going to wake up and suddenly start doing cartwheels and backflips, but the boost to your kind of metabolism, insulin sensitivity, overall just endurance during your workouts, not to mention just regular cardiovascular benefits. I could go on for hours, and I think I already have. I'm sure if I could somehow track all of the minutes that I've talked about cardio and all these lifts, yeah. Well, just if I could tell you anything, apart from upping your training intensity, adding cardio is also a pretty dang positive move in my mind. So take it from me, start clocking some hours. I promise you'll enjoy it. Or if you don't, at least try it and come back and say, Sam, that's freaking stupid, I'm not doing any more cardio. But I've never heard that response yet. So that's all I got. I will see you for an arm day tomorrow. Yeah, I gotta maintain this intensity. I don't want to drop below this level of just ampedness on a set-by-set basis. It's like I got a quota every day. Nasty, badass freaking lift. Then you can go home, eat some food, watch something, chill, start the recovery process, and do it all over again. That's the freaking fun part. So, arms tomorrow. I will see you then.